Ladies and gentlemen, there will come a day when your silence will speak louder than your pain. When the same people who tried to break you will be left confused, not by your tears, but by your calm. They expected chaos, they expected weakness, but instead, you gave them grace, control, and mystery. This isn't just silence. This is power reborn. Stay with me. Because by the end of this, you'll never explain yourself to the wrong people again. Silence is one of the most underestimated forms of power. It doesn't come from submission, nor does it arise out of defeat. True silence is a conscious decision, a bold refusal to let someone else dictate your emotional state. When someone wrongs you, they often expect noise. They wait for your reaction, your confrontation, your breakdown. They feed on drama, on the performance of pain. But when you deny them that, when you choose silence instead, it throws them off balance. It confuses their expectations. It creates a void they can't fill or understand. That's when the tables begin to turn, not with shouting, but with stillness. In moments of betrayal or heartbreak, the natural instinct is to cry out, to scream, to plead for answers. That's what makes silence so disruptive, because it defies all those instincts. It shows an unshakable self-respect that says, I won't give you more of me. Silence is not the absence of words. It's the presence of self-restraint. It's choosing to guard your energy rather than spend it on someone who doesn't deserve it. It says, you no longer have access to my emotions. That silence echoes louder than any argument ever could. It becomes a mirror to the other person's guilt, their cowardice, their loss. It becomes a lesson in dignity. Those who try to break you often expect chaos. They're prepared for anger, for tears, for rage. But what they're not prepared for is indifference. They don't know what to do when the one they thought they controlled walks away without a sound. Silence confuses them. It creates doubt in their mind. Did I even matter? Huh? Did I even matter? Why isn't she reacting? That mental chaos is their punishment, and your peace is your reward. You're not ignoring them out of weakness. You're ignoring them out of strength. That silence is strategy. It makes them question everything they thought they knew. It makes them remember you not with pride, but with regret. Choosing silence doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you felt enough to know that some battles are not worth fighting. Silence is you choosing your well-being over someone else's validation. It's walking away with your head held high instead of staying to be torn down. It's refusing to justify your worth to someone who couldn't see it. People may call it cold, they may call it cruel, but it's none of those things. It's clarity. It's protection. It's healing without putting your pain on public display. It's strength dressed in grace. And it's the kind of strength that leaves a lasting impression. When you cry, you hand your power over. When you yell, you give them the reaction they wanted. But when you go silent, you retain control. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what you'll do next. And in that space of unknowing, they lose control. That's the secret. That's where silence wins. You don't need to prove yourself through words. You prove it by choosing not to engage in emotional warfare, by walking away without turning back, by closing the door without slamming it. Silence is the final word that needs no explanation. There's dignity in silence. It's the choice to not be defined by someone else's cruelty. It's the decision to rise above the noise instead of sinking into it. When someone expects tears and gets stillness instead, it unsettles them. It forces them to sit with themselves, without the distraction of your pain. And often, that silence is more confronting than any speech could be. It says, "You hurt me, but you don't get to watch me suffer." That quiet defiance becomes your shield. Your silence protects your soul in ways your voice never could. It becomes your power, your armor, your final act of strength. You don't have to scream to be heard. Sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is say nothing at all. Because silence isn't passive, it's deliberate. It requires restraint. It requires courage. It's easy to react. It's harder to reflect. And silence is reflection in action. It shows you've reached a level of emotional maturity that doesn't depend on external validation. That you've learned when to speak, and more importantly, when to stay silent. And when you choose that silence wisely, it speaks for you. It carries your message with more force than words ever could. Silence gives you the space to heal. It's where you rebuild your strength without the noise of other people's opinions. It's where you reclaim your identity, piece by piece. You're not running away from the situation. You're rising above it. And in that elevation, you gain clarity. You realize that your peace is too precious to be sacrificed in proving a point. That your value doesn't diminish just because someone fails to see it. Silence gives you the distance you need to see the truth clearly. And sometimes, that truth is that walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. And the beauty of silence is that it keeps them wondering. They'll replay every moment, looking for clues, for closure. They won't find it, because you've taken back control. You've closed the chapter. Without giving them a script, that uncertainty becomes their burden. While you move on, they stay stuck in questions. That's the effect of silence. It haunts them. It follows them long after you're gone. And every time they remember you, they'll remember the stillness that followed. The silence that screamed louder than any goodbye. The strength that left them speechless. So the next time someone tries to diminish your worth, that losing the battle, your peace. And when you choose silence over reaction, you're not losing the battle, you're winning the war. Not with noise, but with quiet power. Let your pain be your passion. That losing the battle, your pain be your passion. Your power, not with drama, but with distance. Not with anger, but with grace. That's how you rise. That's how you leave them confused. That's how you take your power back and never let them take it again. Power is not in how loudly you speak, but in how calmly you respond when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. Emotional control is the mark of someone who has walked through fire and chosen not to let it define them. It is easy to let anger take over, to explode in the face of betrayal, to let your pain become a weapon. But real strength is choosing not to. Real strength is pausing, breathing, and deciding that your emotions do not belong in someone else's hands. There is power in not reacting. There is power in holding still when provoked. And that restraint isn't weakness, it's mastery. Because to control your emotions is to control your life. In a world that romanticizes outbursts and dramatizes breakdowns, self-control becomes a rebellion. Everyone expects the chaos. They expect shouting, pleading, accusations. But when you show up with grace instead of rage, you disrupt the pattern. You don't play the role they wrote for you. Instead, you rewrite the scene entirely. That emotional control makes you unpredictable, and that unpredictability makes you powerful. People cannot manipulate what they cannot provoke. The moment you stop reacting to everything, you start choosing what deserves your energy, and that choice becomes your freedom. We are conditioned to think that power looks aggressive, that you must raise your voice to be heard. But the quietest people in the room are often the ones holding the most power. They observe, they listen, they don't waste words. They speak only when it matters, and when they do, people listen. Because their silence beforehand gave their words weight. Emotional control gives you that weight. It makes your presence more commanding than any display of fury could. You don't have to shout to be taken seriously. You have to carry yourself like someone who doesn't need to shout to be understood. Mastering your emotions is like sharpening a blade. You become precise, not reckless. You no longer say things in anger that you later regret. You don't cry in front of people who caused your pain. You don't hand your power to those who thrive on it. Instead, you sit with your emotions, understand them, and then choose how to respond. That choice is your strength. It's the difference between reacting and responding. One is impulsive, the other is intentional. And when you respond with intention, you stay rooted. Nothing shakes you. Not because you don't feel, but because you know your feelings are yours to own, not to hand over. People will test your patience, push your boundaries, and expect you to break. But when you don't, it leaves them unsettled. It forces them to confront their own behavior without the distraction of your emotional reaction. You become a mirror, and in that reflection, they're often forced to see the very thing they wanted to ignore. Emotional control is not about denying how you feel. It's about refusing to perform it for others. You can acknowledge your hurt, your anger, your disappointment, but you don't owe it to anyone to express it in a way that makes you lose control of yourself. There's a silent pride in walking away from conflict with your head high and your voice steady. You don't need to win arguments to feel powerful. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is end the conversation with peace in your heart and silence on your lips. That peace is priceless. It means you're no longer ruled by the need to be right or the urge to be heard. You've reached a place where your peace matters more than their chaos. And once you taste that peace, you won't give it up for anyone. You'll protect it like it's sacred, because it is. Emotional control allows you to walk through storms without letting the wind shake you. It gives you clarity in confusion, calm in crisis. While others spiral, you stay grounded. That grounding comes from knowing who you are, what you value, and what you will no longer entertain. People mistake your calm for indifference, but it's not. It's discipline. It's years of learning that not everything deserves a reaction, and that silence is often the best answer to provocation. Because silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wise enough to choose peace over ego. There is an elegance in restraint. It's the ability to keep your voice soft, even when your heart is breaking. To smile, not because everything is fine, but because you choose not to give your pain the power to define your presence. That kind of grace leaves an impression. People remember the one who didn't crumble under pressure. They remember the one who stayed composed when emotions were running wild. That composure doesn't come overnight. It's built through pain, through reflection, through understanding yourself deeply enough to stop letting others control your narrative. When you control your emotions, you start attracting different energies. You stop reacting to toxic behavior. You stop trying to prove yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You begin to walk away from things that no longer align with your peace. And that walk, silent, deliberate, graceful, is where your transformation happens. You're no longer looking for closure because you've given it to yourself.